भूतले स्वयं ईश्वरदान्तिकं वन्दे अहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी निति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna. So welcome everyone back again to the continuation of our series. So we are looking at Bhagavad Gita chapter by chapter, verse by verse, and we are primarily focusing on the differential commentary. That means whatever Ramanujacharya has said, which perhaps we may not see in the Bhagavad Gita as it is. So that is the part that I am trying to focus on. Also, we are using Gitartha Sangraha, which is the summary study of Yamunacharya for every chapter sections of the Bhagavad Gita. Correct? So we have already done 9 chapters. So we are at chapter 10. And we shall begin chapter 10 with the verse of Yamunacharya where he summarizes that particular chapter. Okay, so that's what we would begin, and maybe we would do about 11 verses today. Yeah, so this 10th chapter may be done in maybe 3 parts. Yeah. 1 second. Yeah. So the verse is there on the screen. This is the verse of Yamunacharya where he summarizes 10th chapter. So Kalyana Gunanantya Kritsna Swadhinatamatih Bhaktirutpatya Vivridyartha Bhaktirutpadya Patti Vivridyartha Vistirna Dashamodita. Right. So this is the summary verse of what the 10th chapter is. So what does Yamunacharya say? Let's see. So he says this Dashamodita. Dashamodita means the 10th chapter. The purpose is Bhakti Utpatti and Vivridyartha. Okay. Bhakti Utpatti means literally for Bhakti to be born in our hearts. And also Vivridyartha. So Vriddhi means we all know it means to increase. And Vivriddhi means to increase it a lot, right? To increase it tangibly. So the point is, the purpose of the 10th chapter, he says, is to create bhakti in our hearts and also increase that bhakti. Okay. Now, how is that going to be accomplished? So, Kalyana Gunanantya. So, Kalyana Gunanantya means Krishna is going to speak about his Kalyana Guna. Kalyana means auspicious qualities. Kalyana Guna means auspicious qualities. Krishna is going to speak about his Kalyana Guna. He is going to speak about his auspicious qualities. And Krishna Swadhinatamatihi. That means Swadhinatamatihi means Krishna is also going to speak about how the entire world is subservient to him. Adhina. We all know this word Adhina in Sanskrit. That means subservient. So that's what the 10th chapter is about, correct? In the 10th chapter, we are going to read about Krishna's qualities and also how everything in the world is subservient to him. Okay, so now what is the relationship of this and bhakti? So basically, Yamunacharya's point here is that when we hear about Krishna, when we hear about Krishna's qualities, when we hear about how Krishna is, the supreme controller, how he's the Ishvara and everything is subservient to him, by this knowledge, we will start developing love for him. So the whole idea is that developing bhakti means one has to develop love for Krishna. Okay, and the Gita process of developing love is you hear about him, you understand him, and then you develop love. Just like Rukmini developed love for Krishna by hearing about Krishna, correct? So similarly, by hearing about Krishna, we can develop love for Krishna. And when we develop love for Krishna, bhakti utpatti, correct? Bhakti is born in our hearts. And then, obviously, once bhakti is born, as in once some attraction is obtained towards Krishna, one will start practicing bhakti as well, bhakti yoga, by which vivriddhi will happen, right? By which the bhakti will grow. So this is Yamunacharya's perspective, right? So he's saying that this whole chapter. So we have to understand again the big picture. Okay, so till the 9th chapter, Krishna has spoken about Bhakti Yoga, but now he's going to speak some more things, which is not there in the 9th chapter, correct? Because he's going to speak about his auspicious qualities, and he's also going to speak about how everything is subservient to him. So the first thing, so Kalyana Gunanantya. If you see that Sanskrit, so Kalyana Gunanantya means, Yamunacharya here he says that the Lord's qualities are ananta, correct? It is uncountable. His Kalyana Guna, that means his auspicious qualities are uncountable. So there is a verse that I came across, Sankyatvam naiva shakyante guna doshascha sharginaha anantyat pratamo rashi abhavat eva paschimaha. So what this verse basically says is that Sankhyatum naiva shakyante, you cannot count. What you cannot count? Guna dosha cha sharanginaha. So sharangi means Krishna. So you cannot count his good qualities also and his dosha also. So why is it like that? Anantyat pratamo rashihi. That means the pratamo means the first thing is the gunaha. It's anantya. That means it's unlimited, uncountable. And that's what we will see in the 10th chapter. Correct? Krishna's qualities are all uncountable. We cannot even begin to count the qualities of Krishna. Yeah, we cannot even begin to count the qualities of Krishna. And abhava deva paschima. Then what about the dosha that is being said? Well, abhava, that means the dosha doesn't exist only, because there is no dosha. That also you cannot count. Okay, so it's an interesting verse that says that Krishna's qualities are also uncountable and his doshas are also uncountable. One is uncountable because they are infinite, other is uncountable because there exists nothing. So again, you cannot count it only. Right. So this is the first thing. And the second thing, as I said, is how everything, Kritsna Swadhina Tamati means how everything is subservient to him. So this is the goal of this particular chapter, right? So let's start with the verses. And so I'm actually intentionally expanded my screen so that I can just focus on what is being said, right? So that's why. Okay, so we're going to go verse by verse. 10th chapter, first verse. Bhuyeva Mahabaho Shrunume Paramam Vacha Yetteham Priyamanaya Vakshami Hitakamyaya. Okay, so we know this. So look at this translation here. Bhagavan Sri Krishna further says, Hey mighty armed Arjuna, desiring your welfare, I shall elaborate to you, who is delighted on hearing my greatness, further regarding my infinite auspicious qualities and my sovereignty over all entities in the universe. Listen attentively to this supreme excellent utterance. Okay, so in fact, there are many words here we need to touch upon. So let's spend some time on it. Okay, so Krishna, what is Krishna saying here? Krishna is saying that, so first thing in this, about this verses, if you see this verse, it's like Krishna is trying to draw the attention of Arjuna, right? He's trying to draw his attention. Hey, come on, please hear what I'm saying carefully. And one interesting thing about this 10th chapter is Krishna started speaking without Arjuna raising any question. So Arjuna has not asked anything. Till now, generally, if you see Arjuna has asked something and then only Krishna speaks, right? There is some connection. But here Arjuna has not asked anything. In some sense, at the end of the 9th chapter, pretty much everything is clear. Arjuna has already said that, Krishna has already said, right? Manmana bhava madbhakto. Everything is pretty clear. But then Krishna wants to increase the understanding of bhakti. Okay, hence, without any question being raised, Krishna has started speaking himself. Generally, there is a rule in our scriptures which says, Na prashta kasyachit bruyat. That means don't say anything if not asked. Okay, so this is a general rule to be observed. It is said, if somebody doesn't ask you, then you should not say anything. I think in English also there is a saying, right? Advise only when hired. Otherwise, people don't appreciate very much. But so then why is Krishna doing that? So for that, Ramanuja says, generally see the nature of people is that when we hear somebody's glories, we are not so comfortable hearing it. But Krishna starts telling here, calling Arjuna as Mahabaho, mighty armed one, to indicate that though Arjuna is very well qualified, mighty armed is to indicate that he has an exceptional qualification, but still he's not envious. Because generally the point is those who are more qualified, they feel envy also. Just like we are seeing now in this Ram Mandir inauguration thing also, that those who are qualified, some people who think themselves qualified, they feel envious of some other person who is, coming as the chief guest, etc. So this actually happens. People who have some qualification, their pride also tends to be a little on the higher side because they feel that they have to be given a particular type of respect and they cannot really tolerate hearing the glory of someone else or seeing that someone else is glorified. So Krishna is calling Arjuna Mahabaho to indicate that though you are Mahabaho, okay, though you are Mahabaho, you are not envious. So this is basically a continuation of ninth chapter. In the ninth chapter, Krishna had already said, if you remember, that Arjuna is non-envious, and that is why he is qualified to hear Bhagavad Gita. But now Krishna is saying, Priyamanaya, look at the translation, who is delighted on hearing my greatness. That means it's not that Arjuna is just non-envious, but he is super happy to hear about Krishna in the 7th chapter, 9th chapter, everything, correct? So two qualities. One is he's very qualified, but still not only he's not feeling envy. See, to not feel envy is one step, but to go further ahead and to feel delighted on hearing the glories of Krishna is even one step higher, correct? So that is why Krishna is saying that I am going to talk to you, right? I am going to speak Hitakamya. Hitakamya means this is about bhakti. Okay, so that is why Hitakamya. And then there is this word Paramam Vachaha. So Ramanuja says Paramam Vachaha means supreme, excellent utterance. Because he wants to say that this is superior to karma and jnana, which I have already spoken. So essentially, if you see in the first 9 chapters, a lot of focus was on karma yoga, jnana yoga, etc. Right? But now bhakti is being considered as something which is paramam vachaha, supremely excellent. It's higher than anything else, so to speak. Right? So Krishna is saying, and then when Krishna is saying, I shall elaborate, aham bhakshyami, regarding, so somebody may say, he has already spoken about bhakti, right? In the 9th chapter. So what is he going to speak again now? So the point is, he's going to go more deeper. He's not going to repeat the same thing of the 9th chapter, but he's going to go something more deeper. And that is why he's saying, Shrunu, listen attentively. Okay, he's kind of drawing the attention of Arjuna. So this is how the first verse has been commented, right? So let's go ahead now to the second verse. Okay, the second verse, Krishna says, Name vidu suragana prabhavam na maharshayah aham adirhi devanam maharshinam cha sarvashaha. The host of devatas and the great sages do not know the reality of my glories. I am the prime cause of the nature, knowledge, power of the devatas and of the great sages. Again, a very famous and simple verse as well. So what is Krishna saying here? He's emphasizing that this knowledge is confidential and hence one should be attentive. Krishna basically wants to say that even the devatas and the rishis don't know about this. So it's not that, so because why devatas and rishis? Because generally devatas and rishis, they have a sensory power much greater than human beings and they can perceive things that we cannot ordinarily know. But Krishna wants to say that even those people, they don't know my glories, he wants to say. So Prabhavam, Ramanuja translates that as Prakarshena Bhavaha. That means to understand his various qualities. Why they can't understand? Because Krishna is the source of all these people, right? So he is the source of all of them. Sarvashaha. That means in all respects, he is all respects in terms of nature. He is the source of their nature. He is the source of their power. He is the source of their knowledge. Everything he is only the source of. So no matter who you are in the universe, you are not going to be able to understand Krishna so easily. And that is why Krishna is again kind of drawing the attention of Arjuna to indicate that, hey, look, you have to pay attention and try to hear about, my glory. So that's how this particular verse is, right? Yeah. Let's go ahead now. The third verse. Yo mam Yomamajam anadim cha vetilokamaheshwaram asammudasa martyeshu sarva papai pramuchyate. Krishna says, the one who understands me as ever existing without being born at any time, and the one who is the Lord of all the lords of the world, such a person among men who is free from delusion and clearly understands Bhagavan as distinct and different from all other entities, is freed from all sins which obstruct the rise of bhakti. Okay, so they're very interesting translation. So I'll just focus again on the parts which have a very unique translation. So we all hear this word, na sarva papai pramuchyate. In many verses it comes. Sarva papai pramuchyate literally means one is freed of all sins. But Ramanuja specifically, he says here that is freed of all sins which obstruct the rise of bhakti. So why does he say that? He says that because his point is that suppose if all your sins are completely freed, then you cannot exist in the material world. That means even because if you are still sitting around in this world doing something, it means some sin and some piety is still there. That means if all pious and sinful acts of someone is completely destroyed, he immediately gets moksha, he says. Okay, so he says that when we read this verse, Sarva Papaya Pramuchyate, what we need to understand is in the context of this chapter. So because this chapter is meant to help you generate bhakti and increase bhakti in your heart, Sarva Papaya Pramuchyate means those sins which obstruct the rise of bhakti. So what is the example of that? So Ramanuja says that just like somebody may have offended someone in the past life, and he may have not apologized to him. So that's something still, kind of impeding his bhakti. So like this, he says several acts that we may have done, sins and offenses, they may be impeding our bhakti. So sarva papaya pramuchyate means, so because they're impeding our bhakti is not going ahead very nicely. So all that can get cleansed. So what is the qualification for that? So what is this basically? This is nothing but the fruit of the chapter. See, basically, the prayojana has been said. Prayojana means the end result. The end result of hearing this particular chapter of Bhagavad Gita is what? That one who understands Krishna. So one has to understand Krishna. So how one has to understand? One has to understand in three things he has said. First is Ajam. Ajam means one who is never born. Okay, literally one who is never born. So the point is, Krishna is different from the Achetana and also from the normal Jivatmas. Like all of us, even though one may say we are unborn, but we are born, right? Every time we take a new body, we are having a Janma. Okay, and even Achetana, if you see, even that has a Janma. Like for example, let's say some stones are there, they are put together and made into a house. Okay, so that Achetana Vastu, which is the stone, it has a Janma, right? As in when it becomes a house, it becomes a new entity, so to speak. Tomorrow the house may be demolished and the stones may become something else. So every time that matter takes different forms, and in each form it can be considered as a Janma of that matter, as in it takes a new appearance, correct? But Krishna is considered Ajam. But again, somebody may say, Are, but then the Muktatmas are also Ajam. So Anadhim means he's never born. That means at least Muktatma, one may say that, oh, he was there previously and now he is gone or something. Right? Previously he had birth, but Krishna has never any birth. And Sarvaloka Maheshwara. Okay, he's a master of everyone. So these are three attributes mentioned here. And the point is, one should not have any doubts about it. So one should not have any moha. Some moha means basically one should not have any confusion. One should very clearly be convinced that no, Bhagavan is distinct and different from the matter, the spirit, and as well as the Muktatmas. He is superior to all these people. Okay, if you understand him like this, Maheshwaram, Maheshwaram means is the Lord of everything. So again, this point, this point is going to be emphasized a little bit more. One second, let me just see if I have to do that now itself or a bit later. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Yeah, okay, that will come a little later. Maheshwaram. Ishwaram will be elaborated because this whole chapter is about how Krishna is, the controlling everybody, as in everyone is subservient to him. So this point will come later. I'll elaborate that. Okay, so if you understand this, there is a Falashruti given that all sins which are obstructing our bhakti, they will go away. Okay. And the next two verses, they are again very, very interesting, very beautiful commentary again here. They are going to talk about how everything is coming from Krishna. Krishna is going to give an example. So let's look at the verses and then see. 4 and 5 are read together. Even Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is, they are done together. So I'll read it and then we will see the translation. Buddhir jnana sammoha kshama satyam damas shamaha sukham dukkham bhavo bhavo bhayam cha bhayam evacha ahimsa samata tushti tapaso tapo dhanam yasho yashaha bhavanti bhava bhutatma makta eva pratagvidaha. So what Krishna does is, in these two verses, 4 and 5, Krishna talks about everything that arises in our mind to be coming from him only. So that's what Krishna is doing here. Krishna is basically saying how everything that arises in our mind, okay, is actually ultimately coming from Krishna only. So let's see some examples here. Buddhi, the power of the mind to discern and determine. So that's the definition of buddhi is given. Right? That means we always say, buddhi is intelligence. That means the ability to discern something. Jnanam, possess clear knowledge regarding sentient and non-sentient entities. Asammoha, not getting delusion, like mistaking the body and Atma to be the same, or taking oneself as an independent entity, etc. Asammoha. So sammoha means to think something same, sama. Asammoha means to be very clear, no, it is different. So basically here there is the Vaishnava commentary that is coming in, correct? Because we are talking about the difference between the Atma, Paramatma, everything. Kshama. Okay, so Kshama is having, it's patience actually, having forbearance even in provoking situation. Okay, so there is a nice verse here. It says, Mano vikara heto satyapi avikritam manastvam. That means mano vikara, that means there is enough cause for the mind to be changed. That means there is enough reason for the mind to be agitated, but still you don't get agitated. That is called as kshama. Okay, so he gives an example that nobody can say that I'm patient when sleeping. Okay, no one can say that. When I sleep, I'm very, very patient. I have the quality of patience when I sleep at night. No, because when you are sleeping at night, there is no question only, of your mind getting agitated. So how can you talk about the fact that you are patient at that time? So that doesn't arise only. So that is why the translation is even in provoking situations. So if you remember that line also of Prabhupada, it's not in this Bhagavad Gita, but it is elsewhere that one's greatness is estimated by one's ability to tolerate provoking situations, correct? So that statement is connected to this only. Kshama. Kshama is actually patience, but it is when there is provocation. Then Satyam, speaking truthfully for the good of all beings. So Ramanuja says, Yata Drishta Vishayam Bhuta Hita Vachanam. That means Hita Vachanam. That means whatever is beneficial for everyone. Yata Drishta. However you saw it, you present it. So there is truthfulness. Yata Drishta. That means whatever you see, you present it factually, but then you present it Hita Vachanam for the benefit. Then Damaha we all know, which means to redirect the external senses, right? External senses to be controlled. Shamaha means controlling the mind. Okay. Then look at Sukham. It's a very nice definition he has given here. Okay. Sukham, he says, is experiencing what is agreeable to oneself. That is Sukha. See, because how can you, in an absolute way, how will you define Sukha, right? So the only way you can define it by saying is that whatever is agreeable to oneself to experience, that is Sukha. Like for example, someone may like only pungent food. Okay, pungent means which has a lot of chili, which is very hot. So if he eats that, he feels Sukha because he's experiencing what is agreeable to himself. But some other person, for him or her, pungent food, which has a lot of chili, may be Dukkha. So he is experiencing what is disagreeable. So that is how Sukha Dukkha is very relative. So that's how it is defined like that. Bhavaha means elation of the mind when we experience pleasure. And Abhaha means Abhavaha, means depression in the mind when we experience sorrow. So basically, please note in text number 4, Krishna has not concluded anything. He has just listed several characteristics of the mind. So what Krishna wants to say becomes clear only in the verse number 5. I've already read it, so we're just looking at the translations. Bhayam, the misery caused by perception of signs of impending sorrow. Okay, so that means there is a fear of the future. So that is bhaya. Abhayam cha, the absence of fear. Ahimsa. Now again, ahimsa, very beautiful definition Ramanuja gives. He says, paradukka ahetutvam. That means don't cause dukkha without a good hetu for another. Please try to understand this. So ahimsa is not translated ahimsa as simply non-violence. That's a very boring and incorrect translation, correct? Because when you say ahimsa is, I mean, just when we say in English as non-violence, then it is not very clear. Like then we have the problem of someone like Gandhi who comes and says that Gita stands for ahimsa. So he says, paradukkam ahetutvam. That means there is no good hetu for another, and still you are causing dukkha, that is himsa. Ahimsa means to not do that. So which basically means, for example, suppose if there is a murderer, the king must punish him by hanging him to death because that is good for him. So then that is not considered himsa in this definition. I hope you're appreciating this point, right? Paradukka ahetutva. On the other hand, without any hetu, you give dukkha to somebody, then that can become himsa. Okay, but if there is a hetu, like Prabhupada's standard example is there, right? Like if a surgeon is doing an operation on a patient, then even though he's using the knife or something, there is a hetu. Okay, though he's giving dukkha to the patient by cutting open his stomach, there is a hetu. So then that is not considered ahimsa. So I think these definitions are very important. Otherwise, one one mistakes and then one lands up in big trouble, not understanding. Samata. So samata, there is a this actually all these translations. One may wonder, can anybody give any translation? No, these translations are all based on Shastra only. Okay, so for Samam, again, there is another verse. These are all verses from Vishnu Puran. So I'm just quoting that here. Yes, Samamati Atma Suhrit Vipakshe Pakshe. It's a Vishnu Puran verse which says that, see, whatever good or bad happens with yourself or another person as the same. You may recall, we have discussed this when we did 6.31, 32 Bhagavad Gita. 6.32 actually. There also the same definition Ramanuja quoted from Vishnu Puran. This is a Vishnu Puran verse which basically says that samatva means somebody else is undergoing happiness and distress. How much you are affected by that, so much only you should be affected when you are also undergoing a similar happiness or distress. Okay, so which basically means that you don't get affected too much. That is the idea of samatha here. That means looking at self, friends, and enemies with the same equanimity. Again, in English, it's not very clear. But in the Sanskrit verse which he has quoted from Vishnu Puran, it is very, very clear. Yes, sama matihi atma suhrit vipaksha pakshe. Okay, that means sama matihi means with the sameness of the mind. Atma, yourself. Suhrit means your friend. Vipaksha means your enemy. Pakshe. That means all these three people, yourself, your friends, and your enemies. Whatever they undergo, you look at all that with equal vision. So this is samam. This is from Vishnu Purana. Correct. Tushti. Look at the definition of tushti again. Okay. Always happy and satisfied. Okay, here. The feeling of happiness, cheerfulness, even when seeing one's enemies or opponents who are endowed with greatness in many ways. Okay, yeah, so there is an appreciation, even if you see someone who may be an opponent. You see that in the Mahabharata and all, right? Like some warrior is there, he sees someone else from the opposite side and he does a great act of valor and he appreciates, cheers it, and so on. Tapaha. Again, tapaha, there is again another definition. This is also likely from Vishnu Puran. So look at this. Shastriya bhoga sankocha rupa kaya klesha. That means, kaya means the body. Klesha means give some trouble. So he says, give some trouble to the body as per Shastra, Shastriya. Like we all know, Prabhupada also would say that you cannot fast whimsically. Not that for some political reason one is sitting and fasting. Okay, Shastriya, according to Shastra, like on Ekadashi one should fast, etc. Kaya klesha, give some klesha to your body. Bhoga sankocha rupa. And how to give klesha? Bhoga sankocha, that means reduce your bhoga. Bhoga sankocha. Sankocha means thoda kam karo usko. That means reduce your enjoyment, and that becomes tapasya. Okay. Then there is, like we know now, I mean, for the Ram Mandir thing, our Prime Minister is having 11-day tapasya. So that is something, yeah. So generally, any Yajaman or someone, when he's like, we all know, like even when we took initiation, etc., we fast on that day in the morning. That is all kind of just to, be more focused and not that we are just engrossed in sense pleasure. So this is tapasya. Okay. Then daya. Uh, yeah, dhanam. Sorry, dhanam. Dhanam means charity, beneficence. Yes, said. But again, very beautiful definition of dhanam. The Sanskrit definition is even more beautiful. Swakiya bhogyana parasmai pratipadana. Okay, so Kiya Bhogyanam Parasmay Pratipadanam means what I like, I give somebody is called dana. Okay, which is like sometimes in our temple also we have this experience. Somebody has a car which is completely useless, and then he feels I should come and donate it to some temple. No, then that is not called dana because the dhanam definition is what? Sokiya Bhogyana. What you like to enjoy, Parasmay Pratipadana. You give it to somebody else. So again, see, the beauty of Sanskrit is something can be expressed which is not coming so well in English, right? Yeah. Then yasha, renown arising from having virtuous qualities, right? Suppose somebody has some virtuous qualities, then he has fame. Yasha, infamy arising due to possessing wicked qualities. Now see, till now, what did Krishna do in text number 4 and 5? He listed several qualities. Now he's coming to the point. These diverse forms of disposition of the mind of the living beings emanate from me alone. Matta eva, Krishna says. So now we come to the point. Why is Krishna saying this? So Ramanuja, again, the commentary is brilliant here. He says that Krishna is saying that all these things are coming from him in order to tell us that bhakti in our heart also is some transformation of the mind only, right? Bhakti is a feeling of attraction, affection towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because of which we want to do something for him. Correct? So Ramanuja says, just like so Krishna is giving all these examples to remind us that hey, look, even bhakti in your heart you are going to get by mercy alone. Just like everything in the mind. So basically, what are these two verses saying? That all types of vikara in the mind, all types of transformations in the mind are coming from Krishna. Okay, so bhakti also is going to come from Krishna only, and that's what will come later. If you know the verses later, you know, right? 10.9, 10 and all, Krishna is basically saying that I give bhakti to my devotee. So we'll come to that later. Okay, so the whole goal here is, because that's what the chapter is about, right? How to obtain bhakti, how to increase our bhakti, right? Bhakti utpatti and bhakti vivriddhi. We saw that in the beginning. Okay, so that is why all these qualities of the mind have been listed. Correct? So let's go ahead. So these are 5 verses that we did. We'll just do another 5 more and then we will end the day. Yeah. So look at the 6th verse. Maharshaya sapta purve chatvaro manavastata madbhava manasa jata yesham loka ima prajaha. Okay. So now Krishna basically, so to increase our bhakti, now what is the process? We have to hear about Krishna. Okay. So Krishna is going to say many things about him. So what is he saying? Long time ago, begotten by Brahma of his mind, Manasa Jata, the 7 great seers who were appointed as the promoters of permanent creation, and similarly the 4 Manus were appointed as promoters of eternal sustenance. Okay. Whose descendants are all the living beings in this world, these rishis and Manus derive their mental disposition from me. That is, they act according to my will alone. Okay, so see, please try to get the correction of the verses. Previously, now Krishna has already listed several attributes of the mind, saying that all these attributes are coming from him. Now, what he's saying is not only the attributes of our mind come from him, but it is due to his sankalpa or his, what shall I say, his sankalpa only. His sankalpa alone, that all the great personalities in the universe have come. Like Brahma is one. And then Brahma has, through his sankalpa, created all these Sapta Rishi. These Sapta Rishis, which are, like Prabhupada also says that all these have come from Krishna's mind. But the point is, we know Sapta Rishis have come in an immediate sense from Brahma. But ultimately, it is because of the sankalpa of Krishna only that Brahma made that sankalpa and created the 7 rishis. Now, why are these people mentioned here? Okay, so Ramanuja says these people are mentioned because none of these people were born through sexual contact. Okay, they were all born only by sankalpa. Sapta Purve, the 7 rishis, they were all born through Sankalpa only. That means Sankalpa means by mind only they were born. And Chatvaro Manavastata, Manu means, we know Manu. Chatvaro means 4 Manus. Somebody may say, Arey, there are 14 Manus. Okay, so the answer Ramanuja says is 4 Manus because there are 14 Manus, but out of the 14 Manus, 10 are such that they are born through sexual contact. Okay, but there are only 4 Manus, it seems, who are not born like that. So that is being referred to here. Chatvaro Manavastata. And then from these people, all the other descendants in this world have come. Okay, everybody. And they have all come by how? Mad Bhavaha. Now look at that, this word, Mad Bhavaha. These rishis and manus derive their mental disposition from me alone. That means they act according to my will only. Okay. So these people have been said here because ultimately it is through them only that the entire population of the universe has come about, right? So that is why text number 6, right? Moving ahead, text 7. Etam vibhutim yogam cha mamayo veti tatvatah sovikampen yogena yujyate natra samshayah. Here Krishna says all sentient and non-sentient entities of this universe have their cause, sustenance, existence under Bhagavan's control. This is his lordship. Okay, so again, there is an interesting commentary. We'll come to that. So, okay, I'll go word by word. Mama eva vibhutim. So, vibhutim means what? Okay, so this whole Aishwarya, this whole chapter is Aishwarya. Again, Ramanuja gives a very brilliant understanding of Aishwarya. He says this word Aishwarya comes from Ishwara. Ishwara Tanmaya is Aishwarya. Okay, that means someone who has Ishwaratva is called Aishwarya. Mat Sankalpadi Utpati Sthiti Pravritta Kritam. That means just by his Sankalpa only, he is able to create, maintain, and destroy everything. Okay, due to the sense of Ishwara, Rasa. Yeah. So Ishwara, so the point is Aishwarya that is a vibhuti. It's considered a vibhuti because so there is a simple example given, just like a man. What is the greatest opulence in one way, if you see? The greatest opulence is if it's not just about having money or having various luxuries, but it is when people listen to you, correct? So if a man exists whose family doesn't listen to him, even if he is very rich, then it is said that he doesn't have any Aishwarya only. Because he has no Ishwaratva. Ishwaratva comes from the sense of having an ability to ensure your subordinates, etc., listen to you. Okay, but if no one listens to a person, then he cannot be called as an Ishwara. Okay, so the greatest Aishwarya or the greatest Vibhuti, which we will see in this chapter, which is what the point here is that everything is under the Lord's control. That means people like Brahma, the Saptarishis, etc., act according to his will. Can you imagine? That is Ishwara Bhavana. That is the power of Krishna. Okay, so that is what is being said. And this is what we have to understand, that now look at the translation. All sentient and non-sentient entities of this universe have their cause, existence, sustenance under his control. That means he makes us dance and then everybody dances like that. So that is his vibhuti. Cha yogam. Cha yogam means other than that, what else is there? He is without any blemish and he has so many auspicious qualities. So here yogam is referring to various other qualities. And one who understands these two things in reality becomes united with Bhagavan. That means he basically say yujyate. So that word is yujyate. If you see this particular word yujyate, it can be either called as engaged or just like we say sayujya, right? Of course. So that means that you get a unity with Bhagavan. Here, of course, qualitatively. With unshakable yoga of devotion, which can withstand thousands of obstacles in life. Avikalpena yogena. See, avikalpena yogena means without wavering in bhakti. That's the point, right? So one doesn't shake. And there is no doubt in this regard. So So, these are all again glories of this chapter. That means the glories of the chapter are told at the beginning itself. If one can understand Krishna like this, then one will become non-wavering in his bhakti and so on. Correct? And one who understands tattvataha, this word tattvataha is many times coming in this chapter. Tattvataha means not having any confusion, not having any dukkha, paratantriya or ajnanam. That means, not having any misgivings, thinking that, oh, there can be another supreme or anything like that. That means one is very, very clear in his understanding. So, see, this chapter lays a lot of emphasis on the understanding, the jnana part. Jnana of what? This is not jnana of the jnana marga, but the jnana of Bhagavan and his opulences, his nature and his opulences. So one has to be convinced of Bhagavan's nature and opulences. Only then these benefits are awarded to him. Okay, that is how this 10th chapter is, correct? Yeah. Yeah. So now having said this, the last part of our discussion is this Chatur Shloki Bhagavad Gita. Right? We will go over this. Aham sarvasya prabhavo matas sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam bhudha bhava samanvitaha. Bhudha bhava samanvitaha. I am the cause of the origination of all the worlds, because everything in the universe functions because of my will. Thus, understanding that Bhagavan is the Lord of all, with none to rule over him, and is naturally endowed with innumerable auspicious qualities, the great Mahatmas who have perfect knowledge of me worship me with great love. Okay, so here, see, now Krishna is coming to the point that one who understands, see, this is why Yamunacharya also said that in the beginning, right? If you recall, I had said, Yamunacharya's verse. What was it? Yamunacharya said, one who understands Krishna's qualities and also one who understands that he is the Lord of everything. Such a person, his bhakti is born and bhakti keeps growing. That is the summary of the 10th chapter, he said. And that point is coming here now, correct? Because what is Krishna saying? Krishna is saying that he is the origin of everything. And Krishna is saying that if one understands this, that he is the origin, and also understand that he is endowed with all these qualities, okay? With this particular type of understanding, see, that's why Buddha is used. Buddha means one who has that jnana, that perfect knowledge of Bhagavan without a doubt. That one who has that, framework, mental framework. Okay, such a person, he gets the bhava. What is bhava? Bhava is, again, bhava means that type of, a particular motivation to do bhakti in a particular way, correct? So the idea here is that by being convinced about Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, through one's jnana, one understands that this knowledge perfectly, then one develops a particular bhava and attitude that I must do bhakti. Okay, so Ramanuja, what he does here in this verse, he says that this knowledge of Krishna, there is bhakti and there is bhakti yoga. He kind of differentiates in the two. He says bhakti means an attraction towards the Lord, and bhakti yoga means performance of devotional service, like Navavidha Bhakti. Correct? So he says that hearing about the Lord, that starts off that bhakti in our heart, that means an attraction and love towards him, because of which one eventually engages in devotional service. And that devotional service is spoken in the next verse. Okay, so in this verse, that initial attraction which impels one towards doing bhajana or to worship Krishna has been spoken about. Okay, but in the next verse, the bhakti yoga has been detailed a little bit more. Look at that. Machita madgata prana bodhayanta parasparam katayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. The great Mahatmas focus their minds on me alone, sustain themselves only if they think of me, inform each other about the auspicious qualities of mine, and narrate stories about my divine deeds. They are exceedingly delighted to speak about me. The listeners feel gladdened by listening to my greatness. Okay, we'll just elaborate on some of these words. So the first thing is machitta. Okay, that means they keep talking about me to each other. See, that is this whole focus of this verse, correct? Parasparam. They keep talking about me to each other, Krishna says, because the mind of the devotee keeps moving towards Krishna. Machitta means the mind, okay, is focused on Krishna. What does it mean, mat prana? Okay, machitta, madgata prana. Mat prana means what? So he says, mat prana means the devotee feels that without Krishna, my prana will be gone. That means Krishna is my prana. And bodhanam means to share the qualities of the Lord with one another, which one has experienced. So he says bodhayanta means each devotee may experience in his life through his devotion uniquely some quality of the Lord. And he wants to share that with another devotee, and that devotee wants to share the quality that he experienced with the first devotee. Okay, so in this way, the two devotees, they exchange the qualities of the Supreme Lord with each other, which they hear. Okay, that is Bodhayanta Parasparam. So in fact, Ramanuja says, one should not only do Bodhayanta Parasparam, one should dance when we hear about the Lord. So he says that when some devotee is talking about the qualities of the Lord, then one's mind, one's body should start dancing, not that one is simply sitting and hearing the glories of the Lord. Okay. And due to the mind in him, so, and then this is very interesting, right? Tushyanti and Ramanti, he has translated it a little differently. Tushyanti and Ramanti, at first glance, it looks both mean the same, but he says no. He says Tushyanti means, so in the Sanskrit, if you go, I'm not going into it, but actually all these words, they have, very, very specific meanings based on the Sanskrit grammar, based on many other verses in the other Puranas. So he says Tushyanti means when you talk about Krishna, you feel exceedingly delighted. That is Tushyanti. Ramanti means when you hear about Krishna, you feel extremely happy. So he says that Sanskrit is such that, because otherwise it looks that Tushyanti and Ramanti are same word only. It is being repeated, correct? But no, Tushyanti is spoken in the context of the speaker and Ramanti is spoken in the context of the hearer. So both of them feel a different experience. And one is qualified by Tushyanti and one Ramanti. And because devotees always speak and always also hear also from other devotees, we experience sometimes Tushyanti and sometimes Ramanti. Okay, so in this way, this particular 10.9 talks about what happens when bhakti starts awakening in the heart of the devotee. Okay, then somebody may say, okay, after this, what happens? Okay, one hears about Krishna and one sharing Krishna, then what happens? Okay, so then the next step, right? Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayantite. To those who desire to be united with me at all times and worship me with love as an end in itself, I grant them the love, that mature stage of bhakti yoga where there is a direct vision of Bhagavan, which is the means by which they will attain me. Okay, so again, some elaboration is needed here. So he says that when one starts hearing and talking about Krishna, then what happens is one always wants to be with Krishna, satata yuktana. Okay, and that satata yuktana, when one wants to be with Krishna always, basically that means one wants to go back to Krishna, one wants to go back to the spiritual world and be with Krishna. Then he says that, see, so Ramanuja makes a very interesting point. He says you can practice a particular type of bhakti in this world, which is called as bhakti yoga. But there is something called parama bhakti. He says if you want to practice that, then this body has some intrinsic obstacles which it does, right? So in this world that becomes difficult. So one has to go back to the spiritual world only to practice that. But then to go to the spiritual world, he says one needs some special jnanam also, which doesn't come simply by hearing. This jnanam means sakshatkar about the Lord and the abode. That means, like if you remember when we discussed about 8th chapter, we spoke about Archiradi Marga, the path through which the person who is going back to the spiritual world, he goes through a path, etc. So somebody may say, Arey, this knowledge is not given anywhere. So Ramanuja says that, see, some knowledge can be given by scriptures and the Guru. But some knowledge about Krishna only has to give it to you. Simply, you cannot get that only from anybody. I mean, you'll have to practice Bhakti Yoga, and Krishna being pleased with you, he has to give that knowledge to you. Okay, and that is what Krishna is talking here. Dadami Buddhi Yogam tam means he says that mature stage, of that knowledge which about the Lord, his abode, his characteristics, things which cannot simply be understood by words and description. Because there is a verse also in one of the Puranas which says that, all words have some limitation in expressing the character of the Supreme Lord. Ultimately, one has to get a sakshatkara realization within. So he said, this is awarded by the Lord only. This cannot be given just like that. So that is what Krishna is saying here. I give that buddhi I give to my devotee so that he can come back to my abode. Now that, see, now, so this is now again another beauty in Sanskrit. You know, in this verse, there is this word, this phrase called Preeti Purvakam Dadami, correct? Preeti Purvakam, this word is there. Now, Preeti Purvakam, Ramanuja says you can apply Preeti Purvakam either to Bhajatam or Dadami Buddhi Yogam. Please try to understand. Okay. This Preeti Purvakam word which is there now, the Sanskrit is such that you can apply it to the prefix or the suffix. Okay, so one way, I mean, that's exactly what Prabhupada has done. Okay, Prabhupada says, to those who constantly devoted to serving me with love. So what Prabhupada has done is, Preeti Purvakam, he has attached it to Bhajatam. Are you understanding? Okay, so Prabhupada has done that. Because you can do that. Ramanuja also says, you can attach it to that. But he says, I will attach Preeti Purvakam to Dadami Buddhi Yogam. Okay, see the beauty here. So what he says is, he says, Preeti, either you can say that the person practicing bhakti with Preeti Purvakam, or you can say Krishna is saying that I will with love, with Preeti, give Dadami Buddhi Yogam. You understood? That means, why he says that? So Ramanuja Sari says, see, Bhajata means it has to be done with Preeti only. Na? He says bhakti is done with Preeti only. So he says that, okay, you know, in Bhajatam, Preeti Purvakam is already intrinsically counted, correct? Because what do you mean by saying that I'm doing bhajan without Preeti? Aisa kuch hota nahi hai. So Bhajatam means it is with Preeti only. So he says, let's attach Preeti Purvakam to Dadami Buddhi Yogam. Now, I mean, appreciate the beauty in the meaning here. So what he says is, Krishna is saying here to Arjuna, hey Arjun, I am going to give that Buddhi Yoga to my devotee with lot of love. That means Krishna is saying that with great excitement and love for my devotee, I am going to give that to him. You know, so like that the meaning becomes. So this is again a very, very beautiful meaning. Okay, and why that is to be given? Yenamam upayantite. So that he can come back to me. Because as I said earlier, you know, to go back to Krishna, one has to have these type of realizations which cannot be just accumulated by words. One needs that from within. Okay. And what if there are some obstacles? Well, that's the last verse for the day. That is 10.11, right? Where Krishna says, Tesham evanu kampartam aham ajnanajam tamaha nashayami atma bhavasto jnana deepena basvata. To those who desire to mature in bhakti yoga to attain me, to shower my compassion on them, I establish myself as the object of their thoughts and manifest my divine auspicious qualities. With this lamp of clear knowledge about me, which brightly illuminates my divine nature, divine form, divine sportive deeds, and my auspicious qualities in their mind, I destroy the darkness of attachment to worldly pleasures, which is due to their old karma. Okay, so it's a very long translation. So some elaboration here. So what is now? See, you have to remember the connection. Okay, so in the previous verse, what did Krishna say? Krishna said that I'm going to give them that knowledge. Now somebody may say, okay, what if some obstacles are there? Yes, some obstacles can be there. So what does Krishna do? So Krishna says, Atma Bhavasta. First thing we have to focus on that. Atma Bhavasta means, Atma here means the mind. Bhava means, again, right, consciousness. And Staha means I stand. So Krishna is saying, I am going to stand in their mind, you know, in their consciousness. And what am I going to do? And why am I going to do that? Anukampartam. Because I have a lot of compassion for my devotee, I'm going to do that. And what am I going to do in his heart? Jnana Deepena. The lamp of this knowledge. Krishna said, na? Earlier, Dadami Buddhi Yogam. He's elaborating. 10.10 is being elaborated in 10.11. That knowledge, Bhasvata, I'm going to illuminate. Illuminate means what? Krishna basically says here, his name, form, pastimes, everything is going to reveal in the heart of the devotee. I think we have all heard this, right? Many times that ultimately these Krishna's name, form, quality, pastimes, they are actually revealed in the heart of a devotee. So that's the point which is being said here. Now, in order to do that, Krishna says, Nashiyami Ajnanajam Tamaha. Okay, so he may have some attachment to sense object due to ajnana, you know, due to ignorance only one is attached to sense object. So Krishna is saying, I will destroy that darkness of attachment to worldly pleasures. So somebody may say here, Are, itna aage banda pahunch gaya already. We are talking about a devotee who is dadami buddhi yogam tam. Even he has attachments. So Ramanuja says, yes, he will have some small traces of attachments. Okay, he says, as such, everything would have gone, but some rudimentary traces of attachment may be there in his heart, which Krishna only has to drive away. Okay, so with our effort, some attachments can be broken, but some attachments are there which are very, very subtle, which are very rudimentary, which are here and there in some places. Those things only Krishna can destroy, and that is how he's commenting in this verse. So he says that so those has to be destroyed personally by Krishna, and that's what he does here, which he's saying in this verse. So in this way, right? We have looked at the first 11 verses. So just to give a context, so remember, 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita is about hearing the qualities, the infinite qualities, and the Lord's control, dominion over everything in this world. And by hearing this, what happens? If we are non-envious and if we are happy on hearing this, then we start getting attraction to Krishna. So bhakti generates in our heart. Bhakti here means some initial attraction to Krishna. And based on that initial attraction, one will start doing the process of bhakti yoga, chanting his glories, speaking to each other, Shravanam, Kirtanam, all this. And by doing that, one grows in bhakti and one attains Krishna. So this is a summary of the 10th chapter. And we have seen the first 11 verses, which are in the same line. Correct? Hare Krishna. So any questions? Yeah, Rajendra Kumar Prabhu, go ahead.
Haribol, Dandak Prabhu. Yeah. Prabhu, at the start, you were talking about Sarva Papa Muchyate.
Yeah.
Obstruct in developing bhakti is destroyed. But we do see that devotees who are practicing, they sometimes fall to sinful activities. So how does this happen? When, Krishna is saying that those who know him to be unborn and all, he's kind of protecting, but still devotee falls. I'm not able to understand these two things.
Yeah. So actually, this is already in one sense said in the earlier chapter also. Krishna has said, right, in 9.26, that some abominable action sometimes a devotee falls into. So two ways to look at it. One is generally, if you are careful, you will not fall. But if one is not, one may fall also. But even if somebody falls like that, at least from Krishna's perspective, Krishna will see how to get that person back to him. That Krishna has already guaranteed. Okay. So the thing is, this verse is talking about, so we are going further ahead now. So see, 10th chapter is ahead of the 9th chapter. As in, there will be a point where the devotee stops falling, right? As in, if you consider the eternal life of a devotee, as in all lifetimes put together. Okay. So at that particular time, that Sarva Papebhyo, if you remember, I had spoken about the translation. He basically, Ramanuja says that the sins that obstruct one from cultivating bhakti, that is what he drives out. Okay, so if somebody is falling means two things. That means he is not evolved in bhakti actually much. As in, either he's careless or he's not yet very evolved. Okay, so we can't just go by externals as in someone is. We are talking here in a very minuscule, we see a very minuscule part of a person's life. Right? You may have seen somebody for 10 years in our movement, and based on that, you're concluding like that. That's a very minuscule part of someone's life. Are you getting my point?
Yes, Prabhu. Like, I think in Nectar of Devotion, till the stage of Bhava also, there is some.
Yes.
Yeah, and we have example of Bharat Maharaj also.
Yeah.
But his example is very careless.
That's why in 10.11 he's saying that I personally remove those Nashyami Atma Bhavasto. The translation we saw in 10.11. Ramanuja is saying that there will be some attachments due to sinful actions. Right. So at that level also one can have that. Yeah, that is the point.
Okay.
Yeah. Who is that? Vaibhavanand Prabhu? Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. Two, three things like, first of all, you had mentioned that this intercourse thing, that because these sages and four Manus were not born out of the intercourse, so Krishna is mentioning them here. Now, point is that, uh, he will, in the coming verses, he will say that I am that, life which is not against dharmic principles. So how do you see that on one side he is putting these sages and manus at a higher pedestal, and on the other side he is mentioning it to be a yagya, intercourse to be a yagya.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I understood. I understood the point. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, no. So maybe I forgot mentioning it. So the point is, so what he says is, as he says, he makes that point actually. Maybe I forgot to say that in the talk, that Krishna is not distinguishing between these two. Okay, both are fine only. It's not that someone who is born out of a contact of a man and woman means he's in any way less than this. No, it's not like those people are already covered in another verse. Only those people were remaining who were born due to sankalpa alone, and that is being spoken in this verse. Are you getting my point? Okay, so this verse is only speaking about the mind. See, because the whole context is in those verses 4, 5, 6, etc. Krishna is speaking about how everything comes from his mind in order to tell us that bhakti in our heart also, in our mind also can come by the mercy of Krishna only. Are you getting the point? It is to drive home that point that all those points are said. If you remember the context of the verses in 4 and 5, many qualities were said. Na? All were
Yeah.
mind only. All were mental qualities. Mind. And 6 is also talking further more about what all Krishna does by his mind, by his sankalpa. So to tell us that by his sankalpa, Krishna can do so many things, then the bhakti in our heart also is going to be for his sankalpa only. Na? And that is what is coming at later, na? 10.9, 10, etc. Are you seeing the correction? The goal here is not
Yeah.
to speak about one form of procreation being higher than the other. No, that's not the point. Everything is fine. Okay, but the goal here is to talk about the role of Krishna's sankalpa in terms of what it can produce from the mind. So from the mind, so many things can come. All qualities can come. Brahma can come. 7 rishis can come. So many manus can come. Our bhakti also will come from that only. No?
Yeah. And how did you relate the bad things coming in the mind?
Very good. See, that is what na Krishna is. All dualities are reconciled in Krishna. All
Okay.
dualities are reconciled in Krishna. Okay, so that's the beauty, right? I mean, not that only the fame is coming, infamy is also coming from him, right? The asuric nature of Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu are also coming from him only. So, like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, it's not that, so everything in the world means, so it's not that only the good things come, na? Even the irreligion also comes from him only in that sense. Though it can be compared to his back and so on, like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you reconcile that? I mean, then why the karma has to be taken by the living entity if
No,
the thought itself is originating from Krishna's mind?
originating from him, no, so that we have to go back to the 5th chapter. He has already made it clear. It's originating from him doesn't mean that he has willed certain things in a particular way. Na? That he has already said what he wants us to. But if somebody wants to do adharma, then that also will come from him only. Na? That means he has to permit you for that. It's in that sense.
Mhm. And another thing is like, you are saying that all these source are of spiritual and material, all comes from me only.
Hmm.
So it is also said that in Shiva Purana there is Shiv Gita,
Hmm.
and there also Shivji says that everything comes from me. So how do you see this particular verse? Because 10.8 is, Prabhupada gives a very long commentary, and he mentions that why Krishna is supreme. And even Shivaji, Shivji was born from Krishna. How do you see?
See, for that, we have to study basically the greatness of the Bhagavata. The Bhagavat thought, no, Jiva Goswami, you have to read Tattva Sandarbha for that. So there, basically, Jiva Goswami talks about it that different Puranas may emphasize on their particular deity. Like Shiva Puran may talk about Shiva, or there is a just like there is Bhagavad Puran, there is Bhagavati Puran also, which talks about Bhagavati. That glorifies Bhagavati, or the goddess, as
Yeah.
great in many ways. But then, the only when the big picture comes, you come to know something. It is just like, you know, in a small town, the mayor may be glorified a lot, and in some literature, so much will be there about the mayor. It may seem that the mayor is the topmost guy. But then you understand that no, beyond the mayor, there is a chief minister also, and then ultimately there is a prime minister also. So basically, some texts are limited in that context. So this you come to know by cross reference of Purana. So that's what Jiva Goswami does in Tattva Sandarbha, where he proves how the authority of the Bhagavad Purana is supreme to all other Puranas. Okay, because all other Puranas also accept Bhagavad Purana. So he does a lot of analysis in that to come to that point. See, because if you just focus on one deity, then every deity is very powerful. Okay, so Shiva,
Correct.
Lord Shiva has a role in creation, maintenance, destruction. That is correct, actually. Okay, but when you focus only on him, then you see it like that. But if you take that bigger picture and you see the entire Puranic, or the general Vedic thought, then you understand by the cross referencing what is the unique position of Krishna or Vishnu, whatever. Like that.
Mhm. So, some people say that these are, for example, the verses in Shiva Puranam, they are inserted just to make them parallel to Bhagavad Gita.
Okay, so see, basically, one thing is about Puranas and insertions in that. One thing I understand is only those Puranas which have been commented by acharyas across parampara over centuries, they can be accepted by us. Yeah, that's in fact, honestly, that's another problem with many of the other Puranas. They don't
Hmm.
have such commentary. Like if you see Vishnu Puran, Bhagavad Puran, from Ramanujacharya's time at least, all acharyas have commented on it. So the same text has been used by everybody over more than 1,500 years. So there is some, Guru Sadhu Shastra in it. But yes, there is this fear also that many other Puranas have had interpolations, etc., especially the other ones. So their authority is slightly lesser. That part is also true. That part is also true. But
Okay.
even if it is like that, also the answer which I gave previously, that is already there. That this
Yeah, true.
is on a particular character. Okay?
Hmm. Just a last thing, Proji, that this is something practical. One of my family members, they are coming from our family only, that their whole group, I mean, that branch of our family have started taking meat and various other things. But there is one lady in the family, uh, she does not take. And somehow the family members try to convince this lady, and she is still quite firm in her saying that I'll not take it. So she approaches our family, my mother, she tells that I am going through all these things, and they are forcing me doing to eat meat and all those things. And they do not do any kind of normal Vedic activities like going to temple, keeping vratas. So she is facing a lot of trouble. So how you know how could we help her? Or she cannot break her marriage, and she is in dilemma. So how do you reconcile such situations?
No, so is he being forced to eat, or
Yeah, they are, constantly, they are my, cousin, my father's cousins only, but the whole family.
yeah, no, so she will she will have to simultaneously maintain her own position, at the same time not interfere in what they are doing. And because
Mm.
once everybody's grown up, they all have a free choice. So I think that's fine. That should be possible. We have seen even families where people are active meat eaters managing this out. What to speak of families where originally they are not supposed to be meat eaters.
Yeah, correct. So we have Brahminical family, but somehow this branch of our family have started done that. Hmm.
Correct.
Haribol.
Prabhu, go ahead.
Prabhu, this is regarding the example which you had given that somebody may be very comfortable with the pungent food. They feel very satisfied when they have. So my question is basically in two parts. The first part is about like somebody is very much situated in that kind of liking of the food, and then they understand that okay, this is not good for my bhakti, and then they have to change. So now this example is not only about the food, but that can be also about the nature, or for example, somebody may be very accustomed to live in a facility kind of things, and they may not be able to do austerity. So that's the first thing, like how do they cope up with these two things? One is that their nature changing is difficult, and but the second thing is that the demands are there as per the shastras. So that is one thing. The second question, should I ask now or later?
Yeah, we'll take it one by one. So see, yeah, I understood. Good point. See, the whole point of Ramanuja is a sukha dukkha relative. See, that's the point he starts with. So he says sukha means something that is agreeable to your mind. That is sukha, na? I mean, because sukha dukkha, if you see carefully also in the world, it is very very relative. As in, somebody says this is sukha for me, for another person it may be dukkha actually, right? As in, it is not agreeable to his mind and senses to do something like that. So this is basically related to the modes, and this will come ahead in the 14th chapter. This is due to the modes of material nature that somebody perceives sukha in a particular way and somebody perceives sukha in another way. Okay, so there is a way to come towards higher gradations of sukha, which is basically sattvic sukha, where in which, that means if the more one comes in sattva, then my example fails over there, right? Because then pungent food will not be appreciated by that person in sattva, because he will say that, "Arey nahi baba, this is not sukha. Actually, this is dukkha only for me. I was thinking this to be sukha till yesterday, but actually it is dukkha for me." But for that, his nature has to change, which takes time. Okay, which takes time. So I would say that this is an evolution of one's consciousness. So even we see, so that's why even among like quote unquote devotee community also you would see that people have very different habits, right? As in some very gross ways you may say we all follow the same standards, no meat eating, no gambling, kind of in a very very gross sense. But then again, there are very very finer tastes, there are very very finer understandings of sukha, dukkha, etc., which are very very different even among two practitioners of devotion, because again these practitioners are all not in the same modes, na. Like the Bhagavatam third canto talks about, na, three modes into three 81 types of bhakti it is being spoken about, right? So everybody is at some level based on their modes of nature. So does that say make some sense?
Yes, bro. That means by the gradual practice of bhakti, slowly they will be able to overcome that.
And not only bhakti, actually more, I mean, see, bhakti, they may remain in that mode also as long as they don't change the mode also. See, please try to understand, there are two different things we are talking. See, bhakti can be practiced in tamoguna also, right? Bhakti can be practiced in rajoguna also. So your mode also has to change. Now, mode generally changes by lifestyle. See, bhakti is Navavidha bhakti. Okay, so I may be chanting, right? So then that is bhakti. But my lifestyle decides the modes, na? When I sleep, what I eat, how I live, like that. Are you getting my point?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you understand better than me because you're a
Prabhu, can you elaborate that point, please?
So I mean, Tribhuvan Prabhu, because you're a yoga teacher, you understand this point, na? That devotees in general, if you see as a society, people have different lifestyles, na, based on their own background and their own specific liking. Yeah, so my point is that bhakti is certainly going to uplift you, but then there is this lifestyle aspect also. See, that's why Gita comes to three modes of material nature. Na? Why is Krishna encouraging us to come more to Sattva Guna? Actually, coming to Sattva Guna, if you see in one sense, has nothing to do with bhakti. Agreed, na, Trivangon Bro?
Yes, yes.
There are people who may quote unquote not be devotee at all, but can be in Sattva Guna. Okay, because that is connected to lifestyle. That's what we see in the 14th chapter of Gita, na? Because this is related to your experience with the material prakriti. Okay, are you getting it? So,
Yeah.
really, if you practice bhakti carefully under the guidance of a guru, you are supposed to come up, because bhakti is meant to take you nirguna. But then everybody may not be very careful, correct? As in, somebody may be just continuing with particular type of lifestyle habits, etc., where they are not consciously moving towards sattva. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. You
Yeah.
got
So, Prabhu, the second part of the question, now somebody has this kind of typically what we see is in case of renunciate, this thing happens that although initially that desire is there, say for example gross level sense gratification and all, now as a renunciate they are supposed to control it, but sometimes it goes very bad and then it comes out in a very not unpalatable way, and then the person is totally shattered in his spiritual life. So where he made the mistake actually?
Oh no, see, there are two things here. It need not be seen as a mistake also. I mean, now see, if you're talking specifically in an organizational context, see, many times what happens is a person leads a life of, complete abstinence from women, which may not be natural to him in the first place. So sometimes what happens in the early 20s, etc., because you have or early 30s, because you have a lot of passion, to do anything you want in the world, you may be able to pull it off. But then slowly the realization dawns on you that, my body needs this particular level of sensory interaction. Okay, so please try to understand. This is something which I have an objection to, where we generally view some renunciant, especially if we are talking in our temple's context, leaving an ashram or something like that as necessary a fall down. I don't think we should look at it like that. It is because he was situated in a realm which
It's not in a way I'm mentioning as a fall down, but something like they are not expecting that thing to happen. They are trying to control it, and they at one point it goes so out of control that it bounces up.
yeah, because they were expecting too much. See, they were trying to restrain it too much. See, please try to understand this tapasya and all that also, na, that is also done with some moderation. Too much, if you try to push the senses, a bounce back is kind of natural, na, with the body.
Yeah, so basically the problem is with artificial suppression.
Yeah, it's an artificial separation, certainly, without a doubt. It's an artificial separation because, see, Krishna is not expecting that type of a thing here. I mean, see, this complete suppression of senses is more emphasized in the Jnana Marga. If you see Shankaracharya, to be a Shankaracharya or to go on the Jnana Marga, the first qualification is complete sensory stoppage. Matlab, no sense enjoyment only. That means it is from that only celibacy is their first principle. That means no association with woman at all. From there only you can start talking. Bhakti doesn't emphasize so much on that aspect. Yes, you have to be in general sense controlled, follow regulations. That part is there. Even association with one's wife is under certain restrictions. That part is accepted, but not like this, complete withdrawal. So there we cannot always say that it is because they did something wrong in bhakti. Then that becomes too much to say that. It's basically you took a process that ended up being too suppressive actually. Are you getting it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because last few days.
And then when it bounced back, it just, kind of flared up like that. Yeah.
So basically, if they remain under the guidance of their superiors and then they are accountable to it, then they will not get into this artificial suppression kind of things. I mean, they will know that they are not expecting out of much more out of them.
Yeah, I mean that's again ideal because
Or they have to, it has to come from their own conscience.
yeah, see, because even the superiors sometimes they should not over glorify the method of artificial suppression and make them a monk, right? Like that. So that is also there. Are you getting it? So sometimes preaching may only have been done like that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, bro.
So we can say definitely a mistake has been done when things were done properly, still there was some accident. But even that, please let's try to understand. Krishna is quite compassionate of that. He has already said in 9.26 from Krishna's perspective that he will pull his devotee back to him. So that assurance Krishna gives. But as a devotee, one has to be cautious oneself. I mean, one doesn't rely on that so much because one doesn't consider oneself a devotee. Yeah. Yes,
I think that point what you had made was one should be careful. That is very important.
yeah. That's from our side. We should be careful. There's no question.
Yeah, if we are careful, then there are greater chances that we will not get into that position.
Perfect.
Yeah, thank you.
Smithan Prabhu was saying something. I don't know. I heard his voice, but I don't know. Okay, he's not here. Maybe. Damodar Ashtakam Prabhu, you have a question?
Yes, Pooja. Two quick small things. Actually, in this shloka number 6, Prabhupada translates it as the four other great sages and Manus.
Yeah.
But actual translation is what we discussed just now, that there are Chatwari, Manvaspata.
No, if you see Prabhupada, I was noticing that. I was about to say that also. In Prabhupada's translation, what happens is, in the word-to-word translation, Manava is translated as Manu. Okay. But in the translation, he says four other great sages. Are you getting it?
Yes. Four other great sages and Manus.
Yeah.
That's what he's saying.
And the purport, he mainly talks about Sanaka, Sanatana, Sananda, Sanat Kumara, like that. I noticed that. Yeah. So some differences will be there like that. I mean, so again,
Okay.
also sometimes translation and word to word differs because he has also referred multiple commentaries. Na? So Ramanuja's translation purport is like this one. He says four Manus. He names those Manus also. I just forgot. I closed my file. But out of the four Manus, there are four who came from the mind.
Okay, mind. Okay.
Yeah, he names them. Like every Manu is not like that. Like our current Manu, Vaivaswata Manu, he's born of Vivaswan, correct?
Yes.
Mother and father. Our current understanding. So similarly, some other Manus were born out of mother and father, but some were born out of the mind of Brahmaji and other people. So that is what.
Okay. And the second question is probably about text 7. Now suddenly, why this the translation which we are discussing of Ramanujacharya, there Ishvara he brings in instead of Krishna is saying to my.
No, 1 second. Verse 7. What did you say? 1 second.
7th, like it is Yogam cha mama, means Krishna is addressing, like if you do this, means if you remember me and all these things. But in the translation of Ramanujacharya, or say, so there suddenly the Ishvara word is used, if I am not mistaken.
Vibhutim, Vibhutim. In that context, you're saying Ishvara word is used.
Etam Vibhutim Yogam, this text 7.
So that is a commentary actually. So what Ramanuja says is Vibhuti means opulence. Opulence is also Aishwarya, na? Aishwarya. So like that he corrects. Vibhuti is connected to Aishwarya and Aishwarya comes from Ishvara. So like that he talks. And he says the greatest Aishwarya is when people listen to you or when you have actually control and influence over people. Why he says that? See, there is a reason for it. If you read the entire 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, later verses, we all know now, that in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is talking about his greatness from the perspective of how everything is an aspect of his greatness only. Na? That means basically the 10th chapter is talking about his Ishwaratva. That means his influence over all beings. Like Arjuna is representing Krishna only. Krishna says, among all the Pandavas, I am Arjuna. So like that. So that is why the greatest Vibhuti, this whole chapter is Vibhuti Yoga. Na? The greatest Vibhuti is this Aishwarya, this Ishwarata. That means his dominion over all. Like that. That is why he translates it. You got the point?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. I think we need to end now. Yeah, thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.